You're listening to the Flex Success Podcast, where we teach you how to be less shit.
I'm your co-host Lizzie, and this is Dean. We'll be covering all topics relating to health, fitness, and bodybuilding.
Join us as we use our in the trenches experience and up-to-date science to provide you with information that you can actually use.
If you like what we do, be sure to give us a like, follow, share, and tag us on social media.
All right, welcome back. We are joined, Liz and myself, that is, being we, by an interesting guest today. I'll throw to him in a second as to who he is, but I mean, he goes by the name of James Webb, but people may be aware of him as Webby, Webby Eats. An unusual guest for this podcast because James is a competitive eater, and we run a business of telling men and women to eat less food more often than not in order to get as humanly shredded as possible as a bodybuilding competition prep company. And yet your job, my friend, is to eat as much food as possible often is the case. And you do it competitively and professionally now. This is your full-time job. So James, I'll throw it to you in a second, but just for some background for people as to how we came about getting you on this podcast. I don't know how long ago it was, but maybe a few years ago, you started making some comments on some of my stuff. And I was like, I know this guy. And then I followed you and I was like, I like what this guy does. This is interesting. I find some interest in competitive eating. I don't know why. It just seemingly is interesting to me. And then we just started going back and forth. I'm like, where do I know it from? And it turns out that you and I had previous communication when I worked in the supplement industry in Sydney. You're from Sydney. That was our first sort of exposure. And we actually have, acquaintances within the industry too. And that I think you've been coached from a nutrition perspective and body fat perspective from Denver Stain. And only just now, August 2024, we spent a week together in Texas, Dallas, Texas, for you to drive us around for our bodybuilding guys over there competing professionally. And then we also got to see you do your thing, eating as well. So, mate, Webby, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Look, I'll take interesting. I've been called many things interesting. I'll definitely take that.
Competitive eating is, sorry, James, interrupting me there. It's not something that I am very exposed to, but I see people, online from stuff that Dean watches and stuff. And even just at restaurants, I'm like, oh, people eat like such grubs. And that is not something you do. You're actually a very clean eater for someone that eats so much so quickly. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
But can you please introduce yourself by telling us who are you, what do you do, why do you do it? I know Dean has given a couple of spoilers there, but give us your take.
Thank you. Firstly, look, I'm James, Webby Can Eat. I'm a professional eater. I'm actually ranked number 1 in Australia, number 4 across the whole world. Look, kind of like Dean said, I eat a lot of food very often, and it's my full-time job, and I love it.
This is actually like the craziest thing I've ever heard. For people who are just as ignorant as me listening to this, how does somebody make a living eating competitively?
Well, look, the world of YouTube is amazing. So look, obviously content creation is one side of it. You know, you make cool videos, people like to view that, and you obviously get money from that. But actually competing, actually competing, not just a food challenge at a restaurant. I compete on stage, on TV. I've been on ESPN, TMZ, Channel 3, like pretty big events. Baseball games, basketball games, football games. So there's big prizes, big sponsors at stake. I'm actually going to fly to Las Vegas on Thursday to compete in Vegas on Saturday in America. So there's big sponsors, big prize money, big competition. That's another revenue stream. And then obviously I've been fortunate enough to build a pretty decent sized following. And obviously with that comes digital marketing and brands wanting to work with you and, endorse products or just be seen at their restaurant sort of thing. So I have a few pretty random revenue streams, I guess.
I find this so hilarious. I love that. And James, there's times when, from what Dean's told me, and I'd love for you to expand, clearly you eat more than what is comfortable. And bodybuilders in their off season often need to push the limits of food. So I think we can learn a lot from you there. But Dean also tells me, because I figured you would be really obese and you're not, like you're pretty jacked, you lift clearly. So Dean tells me that you fast as well. So you eat beyond your limits of fullness. You also don't eat when you're really hungry. And I'm sure there's some things that you can teach us here as well for, people in their comp prep, for example, ways to make eating more easier or fasting easier. So I think there's a lot that we can learn from you, even though you seem to be the opposite of what bodybuilders do. You're kind of not. I feel like there's a lot of overlapping skills there.
Yeah, look, I think, firstly, I used to I love bodybuilding. I love training. Obviously genetically being 6 foot 1.5, 85 kilos wringing wet. It's not the best bodybuilding genetics, but obviously I got into being a personal trainer when I was young because I love the gym. And you know what? Like similar, like you said, there's some crossover. I have a lot of fitness world fans, I guess, because of the crossover. The discipline that it takes to be a bodybuilder, the dieting, the training. No one's going to tell you, hey, wake up early, prep your meals, do your cardio, go to the gym, or do that extra reps sort of thing. Competitive eating is kind of the same. So, for example, yeah, look, I fast, sometimes days at a time. The day before a contest, 24-hour fast. It's it's a tough one, but again, like you're going to go from fasted like completely empty to like abundance overload of like you just want to explode, right? So yeah, look, part of it is getting uncomfortable in both aspects. You get so depleted and starving, that's uncomfortable. And then you go to that to, you're literally eating a week's worth of food in 8 or 10 minutes. That's definitely uncomfortable, right? So a big element of that is training. Obviously, there's the physical aspect. Get your ass in the gym. I like to lift weights. I don't have the attention span to run miles or walk on treadmills or that kind of stuff. I've got ADD to the max, so I love lifting weights. So obviously the same principle. You go to the gym to lift more weights to get bigger, stronger, whatever. Firstly, I'm literally eating more food to eat more food. Number one, but also number two, like you said, some bodybuilders struggle to eat. The amount of calories or the amount of food, volume of food they have to eat to meet their caloric intake. I stretch my stomach. That's a big part of what I do. To be honest, man, I went to the buffet with Dean and man, he knows how to put away some plates, man. He knows how to eat. But
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And so there's foods you can choose, obviously, that are more voluminous, that bloat you. But also I use a lot of fluid, diet soda. I drink a lot of diet soda. The bubbles, the sugar alcohols and all the stuff that bloats you, it really helps stretch your stomach. And the thing is, when you do a contest, you're really uncomfortable for like 20 or 30 minutes post contest when your body's trying to understand what the hell just happened, right? So with diet soda, it actually helps a lot. Like, you eat a meal and then you kind of top it up with soda because that extra whatever reaction happens in your body and it bloats the hell out of you. It's very painful. You can literally feel your abs like tearing apart. Like it feels, I'm going to assume it's kind of like when a woman is pregnant and their stomach is, everything's expanding. I get this like stretch where my stomach is like this. And that's when you're stretching your stomach, right? So in terms of like I've got a few actual bodybuilding buddies that ask me like, what the hell can I do, And I said, honestly, like start with some diet soda. I know very calorie conscious people, they don't want to eat to be fair, you could eat 3 kilos of vegetables, but who the hell wants to do that, right?
A
So
lot of
like,
fiber too.
yeah, exactly. So like, a 2 liter bottle of diet soda, it'll cost you a couple of bucks and minimal calories. Look, the age-old argument of, oh, it's diet soda, it's gonna kill you and all this, whatever, to put that to one side, like whatever, man. So
It's
I
also not true.
recommend
So
exactly, unless you drank like a swimming pool worth of Diet Coke, then something might happen, right? But again, who's doing that? But
mm.
yeah, like honestly, stomach stretching is a big part of what I do. And I know for bodybuilders, especially in the off season, um, a few of them have come up to me in the gym and said, like, hey, listen, man, like help me out. I said, honestly, chug a diet soda, come back to me in a week, let me know how you go.
Mm. Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
interested to know the details of your stomach stretching like protocol. Is it that you drink 2 liters or you do it like before, always after a meal? Like talk to me about the details of this.
So actually, Dean has seen a little bit of it in action. When I was with Dean in Dallas, I had a contest to prepare for. So basically, okay, let's say the contest is on a Saturday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're eating and drinking like a maniac to stretch your stomach. So you eat food until you're full, have some soda or whatever drink you choose. I like diet soda, top it up with soda. So you feel like almost explosion. Then Thursday, you kind of really focus on being hydrated because Friday is complete fast, no food, minimal fluid. Because if game day is Saturday, you've got to be empty. And I'm talking like intestines empty, bladder empty. I'm talking like empty, like just a
Okay.
soggy balloon, right? So you kind of go through like, the first 3 days is pure like just you're a garbage disposal. Whatever you can get your hands on, you will eat. And then Thursday is like whatever you can drink, you drink. And then Friday, it's like it doesn't matter if you're dying, you don't have anything.
yeah, this is sort of what sparked the conversation between Liz and I about having you on, is because I would say to her when we're there, oh yeah, no, James is training for his competition this weekend. But when you say training, what do you mean? I'm like, well, actually, he trains for this, but he also trains for this. And there were a lot of crossovers, obviously with the extreme nature of this eating, bit in reverse. But like, there's a few things like techniques that you've picked up that I don't know if they were like learned through. Is there somebody out there coaching this? Or if it was just through discovery, or like bodybuilding is, like people just follow what those before them that have been successful have done too, and then they find their own little iterations of it. And it was very methodical, which is what I found the most interesting in regards to filling fluid in one big gulp, then a little bit more, and then eating in one large quantity to try and get used to the distension. Yeah, it's super intriguing.
Look, to be honest, I think what I do, look, there's a lot of, as I'm sure with bodybuilding, there's a lot of politics between eaters. I'm sure, a lot of bodybuilders have some secrets they won't share in terms of, stuff they take or stuff they do. Competitive eating is probably 10 times worse. It is a lot of, honestly, trial and error. If you speak to any competitive eater, they'll tell you, if you speak to 10 eaters, you get 10 different stories of how they prepare, what they do, sort of thing, right? So obviously I've met people that I trust, take a little bit of here, a little bit of there, try it out, find somewhere in the middle that works for me. But yeah, honestly, it's a lot of trial and error, because the best of the best, and the best being Joey Chestnut, he's the GOAT. Like, he's like Michael Jordan and LeBron James put together. Like, no one's ever beating him in the hot dog world. But he will never tell you 100% of how he prepares or how he got so good. But fortunately, we live in the age of YouTube, and there's a lot of video. We compete on stage with a lot of cameras. So, I watch a lot of tape. Contests I've not competed in before to learn the technique. I see what all the other eaters have done. Obviously, historically who the better eaters are based on their results and their ranking. So I do a lot of research, a lot of stalking, a lot of YouTube, playbacks and stuff like that to try and pick up technique. And then I guess, again, like you said, it is methodical, because a lot of it is technique. For example, let's take, I have 2 world records in chicken wings, right? So one technique is getting the chicken off the bone, number one. But number two is, if you're swallowing, you don't really want to be looking down, picking up your next chicken wing. So I have to learn the technique of keeping my head up and swallowing and eating at the same time, and coordination. Things like donuts. I have a donut world record as well. And that's a different technique for that contest altogether, right? It's about being able to store food in your cheeks and then swallowing when you can breathe and things like this, right? But that's from watching tape, seeing what people do, trying it myself. And that's, you kind of just figure out what works for you.
Yeah, because so there's
Who
different
thought
things
there was
here,
that
obviously.
much theory?
Yeah, so there's
Hey,
I'm
look,
assuming there's volume,
so
there's volume competitions, right? Like quantity that you can consume in a certain amount of time, but then there's also speed.
yeah, so look, there's a mixture. So you've got your capacity, which, to be honest, look, when you're competing in the major league, every contest, whether it be 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, usually between 8 to 12 minutes, it's a combination of all. It is the best eaters in the world. So obviously they're going to have the best technique. They're going to have the biggest capacity. They're going to be the quickest. That's the nature of the game. But in terms of food challenges in general, yeah, you've got your speed challenges where you're smashing a burger in like sub 1 minute. I did a pizza last week in 45 seconds. So that's speed. That's, easy. Then you've got your capacity ones that you're eating for 20, 30, sometimes up to 60 minutes. And they're like the 15-pound pizzas, the whole menus of restaurants. They're the killers. And then obviously within that, you've got technique. So like, for example, let's take chicken wings is the easiest to explain, how you get the meat off the bone as quick as possible, but also technique in terms of like, if you have, a tray of food, say you got 10 pounds on a tray, you got to work out how you're going to eat things and what order you're going to eat things in, because some things are easier to eat cold. Some things are absolutely trash that leave them till the end and you don't want to eat them. Let's be honest, when you're already full, it's harder to eat things you don't enjoy. So strategically, you leave your favorite food. So say you got a tray of all the foods. Strategically, you'd leave your favorite thing until last, because when you're struggling, the last thing you want to eat is a food you don't like. You know what I mean? So like there is, Liz is correct. There's a lot that goes into this, but the way I see it is, it's like anything. If you want to be good at anything, you kind of got to do that legwork and put in the hard yards. And look, whilst eating is still very random in America, it's a full blown sport. I'm going to compete a total of 22 times this year, sponsored TV rights and the rest of it, right? So we are the major league. So yeah, if I want to be good and I want to, I guess, help put Australia on the map in the competitive eating world, I gotta do my research, do my training, and I want to mix it with the big boys.
Do you know what I love about this? There's obviously elements of the job that you enjoy doing. I imagine the eating component. I don't know. But there's got to be elements of this, like this. I don't know if you enjoy social media or not. Like all of this research, all of this trial and error. There's got to be parts that you were like, ugh, I would rather not do this. But it seems like you understand that all of these little parts make up the full machine. And if bodybuilders could understand that, like they don't like posing, bro, that's part of your job as an athlete. I'm so sorry. Like even the social media part, maybe like, I don't know, Dean, what's an example of a client who, don't name names, needs to do something, they don't enjoy it, and they're just not getting it done?
Oh, even for us, it's like the biggest one I'd say in the bodybuilding is not taking sleep seriously to the point that it impacts their capacity to consume more food, but also to tolerate consuming less food. So like, there's something, just because sleep is something we have to do, people just take it for granted, you know? So there's like eating is something we all have to do. And yet you can't just show up and just eat because you're good at eating. You have to practice, like you said, and you have to take this seriously. So definitely that one's one. And posing is another one. Like presentation can completely ruin someone's ability to maybe come first if they're like on the cusp of it. But they'll waste 6 months of dieting and do no posing because it's just too hard or they're not interested. So
Yeah, I think with what I do, as the whole package, we take competitive eating as a whole. There's a lot of things that all of us don't like doing. If we separate it in terms of, look, you've got your contest eating, which no matter how good you are, you're never going to make a living from contest eating. Truth be told, the money's in the social media. That's the truth, right? The combination of both has worked really well for me. But if you look at the top eaters in the world, they're either eaters, contest eaters, or they're social media YouTube eaters, right? I'm one of only two or three that have ever mixed the both together. And if I'm going to, without being a dick about it, there's not many eaters that have made a full-time living from doing this because they don't like making videos, because they're very introverted. Let's be honest, we're all weirdos. All us eaters, we're strange as hell. Just like most bodybuilders, socially inept in a lot of aspects, right? Competitive eaters, we're all weirdos. We're all weird in our own way. We all come from different walks into different hobbies and whatever, but we have this one thing in common. We like to smash a bunch of food and do it with pride, right? So for me, the social media, it's fun. Obviously, it's a ever evolving game, and you've always got to be on top of what's trending and what's going to get views and whatever else, right? So it gets tiring, I guess, to the point where like if you put all this effort into a video and a restaurant pays you to make a video and it tanks, it's stressful as hell. But actually, it's like everything. In every, I used to work in the corporate world. There's different stresses, right? If my biggest stress is, how did that video perform, or did I eat 70 donuts or 71 donuts? Like, I don't really have much to worry about, So, whilst there is, a lot of things we have to do, no one. Let's be honest, man. No one wants to eat to the point where you're gonna shit yourself. Let's be honest. Like, no one wants to do that. But it's a part of the game. It's like a boxer, right? Competitive eating is like boxing. A boxer has to cut weight, has to train, skip, heat rooms, saunas, all that stuff, right? For game day, to get punched in the face. Again, no one wants to get punched in the face, but the associated glory at the other end of all that crazy, that's exactly like competitive eating. You put your body through hell, 7 days prior to a contest, and then you are getting punched in the face because who the hell wants to eat 70 donuts or 300 chicken wings or whatever the hell it is, right? But then the day after and you win and you got the wrestling belt around your hip and you're like, hell yeah, I won. It's all worth it, right? And then your videos pop off because everyone's like, oh, he's a chicken wing champ and whatever else, right? So look, it is crazy. It is strange. But that I freaking love it. And I think if you don't love it, and that goes for across the board, whatever you do in your life, if you don't love it, I don't think you can be successful. You know what I mean? So I put the foot down when I have to. I take, just chill out when I have to. But overall, like I actually can't wait to compete on the weekend. I've had a month off. I can't wait.
I find people are usually really into things that they're good at. And if there's elements of the job that you don't like, maybe, or for everyone, even bodybuilders, maybe it's because you suck at posing and that's why you don't like it, but you're not going to get better by not doing it. So maybe practicing it, it then becomes an element that you enjoy. And then like the whole piece, like the whole system of what you need to do, there's less things that suck.
Yeah, and I agree because look, the thing is, I'm competitive as hell, right? So I love to win. I love to win, right? I don't like losing. I'm actually not a sore loser, but I'm very hard. Why did I lose? Right. So if I don't want to do something, I know the guy next to me is going to have done it and going to be doing it. It's like turning up to a gunfight with a knife. Like to me, if you don't prepare properly, you're never going to win. But like, man, I'm a grumpy motherfucker when I don't win. Right. So I just shut up and do what I got to do because, man, like if you want to win, if you want to be the best, or if you want to be like that top, that top group of competitors in any sport, man, life sucks sometimes. It gets hard. If it was easy, everyone would be the best. Everyone would be walking around, 300 pounds jacked and shredded, and everyone would be the best eater, putting, 30 pound of food away in 20 minutes and whatever else, right? But the fact is, it's not that easy. So when you look back and you're like, man, look at my achievement. Like this year, I've had a great year this year. Honestly, a few average results, but overall, such a great year. So I'm like, it's worth putting yourself through hell because I'm like, yeah, man, that's me up there. Like, so I think for me, because I do love it and I am pretty good at it, uh, I let the results do the talking. And when you see the result of the hard work and whatever it is you don't like, it makes it all worth it. And you know what? A win when you get the check and the belt around your shoulder, honestly, like you forget all the stuff you don't like. Like you don't even remember what you've just done that last week.
And I don't
Okay,
know.
so I'm curious.
I remember my stomach fullness for the entirety of the day after I eat a large meal, and I go, that was a bad choice. I should have stopped maybe 5 plates earlier. You do this all the time. Sorry, Liz.
It's my life.
No, I was just going to ask James about his motivations because James, you just spoke about a sense of achievement as one of your main motivators, and that's why well, this is my interpretation of what you said. That's why you push through those moments where life sucks and you do things that are really uncomfortable because you're like, this is going to feel so good later. Are there any other motivators for you to push through those times where you're so starving and you want to eat, but you can't? It's supposed to be a fasting day. Or you're so full, but you still have like 3 pizzas to go. Like, what's going through your mind? What keeps you going?
Yes, look, I don't know if you know much about my backstory, but I used to be a semi-professional, basically professional soccer player. And then I got sick. I have an autoimmune disease, a very rare one called Guillain-Barré syndrome. I basically in 2017, I went to sleep a pro athlete, woke up paralyzed. Was in hospital for 24 months. I nearly died. I was on a ventilator. I had 4 lung clots, kidney failure, pancreas failure. At the moment, I still can't feel my legs. I'm never going to get feeling back in my legs. So I've been, you know, up the shitter. I was in a wheelchair. They told me you're never going to walk again. I had a oxygen backpack for 6 months that I had to charge. Just crap like that. So and I'm not a victim. I went through a tough time. So there was a time where, and I use this analogy often, I was literally in intensive care. I was shitting in a bucket. When I had to go to the toilet, nurses would come and tip me on my side, put a bucket under my bum, let me do my business, baby wipe shower me, right? So if you're not shitting in a bucket, life is good. That's the way I see it, right? So when I'm full. I remember a time I couldn't feed myself. I remember a time I was eating through a tube. So uh I guess when I got into competitive eating, I'm like, you know what? This is like my competitiveness of being a soccer player. And I love food. I was a fat kid. I was obese as a kid, right? So my competitiveness from soccer, my love for food, I can combine this and I can make something of this, right? So when I feel like shit or I'm starving or whatever, I'm like, if you're not shitting in a bucket, you can do this, man. You know what I mean? And also the sense of achievement for me, being told in 2018, hey, by the way, man, you're not going to make it. Like you're out. You know what I mean? To being like top 4 in the world at competitive eating, I'm like, I'll take that.
Life is good. Right. So I haven't quite come to a conclusion on this. You're talking here about perspective, right? So like relative to when you were an athlete and you woke up paralyzed and they're like, you're not going to make it. Relative to that, this is easy. I I'm kind of battling with this question in my mind about like the usefulness of perspective because I see that it is useful, but also I think sometimes we can take perspective too far to the point that we minimize our problems. Like, oh, you think you're having a hard time, you're just hungry. James woke up paralyzed and he had to shit in the butt. Like, so I think that yeah, I suppose I'm struggling with how we can find the middle ground. I think you've done a good job at it. I'm personally struggling with like where the middle ground is for me. How we can use perspective without it minimizing our problems.
Well, I think perspective is relative. We've all been through times, some worse than others, right? So, it's all relative to, I guess, what you have been through or what you're used to, right? But also perspective for me is like, look, my take on perspective will be different to you, different to Dean, right? So for me, it's like when I put things into perspective, it's like, what do you want? Now, if you don't want to be the best, then skip out. Do less. Do what you don't want to do, right? But don't complain. That's the way I see it. So my perspective, because I've been shitting in a bucket, I've been the lowest of low. Sometimes you think you're having a bad day. Your day's not bad. You've got 2 arms, 2 legs. You can talk. You can breathe. It's not a bad day, right? So me, perspective. Obviously, I've been to the lowest of low, and I'm trying to reach, I guess, the pinnacle in my specific field, right? Other people, I mean, they stab their toe and it's a bad day. So,
Mm.
their perspective is completely skewed, in my opinion. But again, I guess it's a very open kind of topic because obviously people get offended when kind of compare perspective. So like, I guess
Sure.
from what you're saying is like, obviously we're going to have different perspectives, but it's kind of cool when you see someone else's perspective actually, especially around what I do, because what I do is freaking strange, right? And why do you do it? Why do you want to do it? And I just say, well, why do you do what you do? You know what I mean?
I think also using difficult times from the past can help give meaning to our suffering. Like that didn't just happen in vain. That shit that I went through helps me now. Like I couldn't do what I do now if it wasn't for that shit. And I love
100%.
that.
And you truly learn what you're capable of when you don't have a choice or when your back's up against the wall. You truly find another gear and you learn. That 2.5, 3 year period, I learned so much about myself, not just about the human body, how good or how shit it can be, but like I learned about myself, how mentally tough you can be or resilient or whatever, right? I'm just a stubborn guy, whatever. I just try. And you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna try to prove you wrong. I might fall over and hurt myself a few times, but I'm gonna try. But honestly, I learned a lot about myself in those 3 years. And yeah, you know what? Like if for whatever reason my life was supposed to change, that's the way I see it. My life is now changed. I'm now married, so like life is different now. So I'm grateful for the really tough times, I guess, in a way, in a weird way. I know it sounds strange, but I'm grateful because of what I learnt and how my life kind of changed. And you know what? To be honest, like right now, hand on heart, I have the best life. So what I get to do, what I get to call work, I'll never complain another day in my life, right? So yeah, a tough time turned into something, in my opinion, truly great.
Yeah, it's like learned resilience, right? But I also think, like, I think what you're saying, Liz, before is like the perspective is relative only to the person that is experiencing it, in that we shouldn't discredit the difficulty that somebody else is facing because their perspective is only relative to what their previous exposure was, or the exposure to difficulty. Like James's eating pain is nothing compared to his hospital pain, but it doesn't mean that we should ever reference James's hospital pain to average Joe to the right's, difficulty with this, because maybe they've just never been exposed to stuff that are that difficult, So, but James, you mentioned before you're going to do 22 competitions in the next 12 months or in 2025.
Yeah, so this year I've already done 19.
Okay.
There's two to go, and I'll probably have one left after that. So yeah, I would have done between 20 and 22 contests this year.
So I mean, that's like an average of one every 2 weeks, right? And
yeah,
it is no secret that the consumption of calories of those days is pretty excessive. Do you like mathematically or like deliberately try and restrict outside of those to manage your weight, or like are there like some heuristics that you use to say, like, if I'm going to have one of these days, I need to have at least a week at this amount of food, or I need to do this amount of exercise? Like, how are you managing body weight seemingly so well?
thank you. Now look, to be honest, this year I think I've put on about 12 kgs, but again, relative to what I do, it's actually not a it's not a bad outcome. You know what I mean? If you ask me, and probably if you probably were to sit down and calculate it, it's actually not a bad outcome at all, considering some weeks I'm in severe surplus. But yeah, you know what? It's kind of like, you know what you've got coming up in the pipeline, so you kind of prepare. Like, for example, the busiest period was May, June, the first week of July. Okay, so all of May, all of June, and then 4th of July is the Super Bowl, the Nathan's contest. So honestly, like during that period, it goes from like, because as well, you got to train. So for the hot dog contest, which is the 4th of July, you train. Like I think I did eight practices, 40 to 50 hot dogs per practice. Do the math. It's a lot of friggin' hot dogs. So like, yeah, I was doing extra training, trying to do double days, cardio, walk around the block, do whatever I could do to kind of keep active. Um, there's no two ways about it. After a contest, the food coma is real. Like I've slept 20 hours after a contest once. Like it kills you. Like it puts your body's going through hell. Like physically, mentally, there's a massive adrenal dump as well. Cause like there's massive adrenaline. When thousands of people are cheering your name or yelling at you or whatever, it charges you up, right? So there's a massive dump after a contest as well. But yeah, look, to be fair, the day after a contest, whether you like it or not, you're not hungry. Like you're not even the smell of food, like you're done, like you're out. So yeah, definitely after a contest, I have to go back into severe restriction. Diet soda is my friend. But the thing is, the way I kind of manage it, I guess, as best I can. Look, I love to train. Training for me it's my fun. So look, there's times I'm in the gym at 3 a.m. If I'm awake, can't sleep, whatever, I just go to the gym, smash a session. Whilst, from a, I guess, training perspective, it's probably not the best option. Like, that whole overtraining and all that stuff. But for me, it's my fun. So sorry. For me, it's fun for me. So trying to balance these two opposite lifestyles, I find it enjoyable, in a sadistic kind of weird way. But for me also, like you have to be sensible. If you're traveling, so when I travel, I don't eat. So I leave my house on Thursday at 5 a.m. and I'll be in America. Obviously, what? But by the time I get to Vegas, it's basically 24 hours. I will not eat. No airport food, no plane food, no nothing. Not because I don't want to, but also like I can just use that time to kind of restrict. And because let's be honest, who the hell wants to eat airplane food? So I feel like I'm not missing out on anything. So as long as I'm sensible like that, I've been able to keep my weight in check. And the other thing is, it's like, look, there's days where you got to make a video. This restaurant's paying you to eat. You know it's going to be out of control, so you kind of plan for that. Hit the gym an extra few sessions. Don't eat the day after. Don't plan a challenge for the day after that, sort of thing. I try and time it as best I can. That's probably the easiest way to explain it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't recommend that. Obviously, you have to do this to manage your body weight because you have to eat excessive amounts. I would hate to think that anyone's listening to this who currently is dealing with a binge eating issue and thinks, well, great, I can get away with it. I could just fast for 24 hours and then I can binge, because we know that actually, if you have an issue with binge eating, fasting can be a trigger for another binge. So
Yeah.
I suppose the takeaway here is like, don't binge eat.
Yeah, and
But
I think as well, like for me personally,
mhm,
it's like I don't condone what I do in terms of like I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, and that's
it's
why I
not a
take
healthy
time off.
lifestyle.
Of
Mm.
course not, and that's why like this month I've been off contest, whatever, eat like a normal human being and stuff. So like, you know what? And again, it's kind of like bodybuilding. For that preparation phase, it can get pretty unhealthy with what you have to do and put your body through, whatever. Same as contests for contest eating. You put your body through a phase of like crazy. And I'll be honest with you, like you're 100% right. It's very easy to get a bad relationship with food. Also in the mind, because like as a bodybuilder, you're programmed to eat from your little container, scoop every little bit of rice out of that container. And then, suddenly I'm seeing trays of burgers or like bowls and bowls of pasta, something like that, right? It's very easy to kind of lose. I know you guys speak about it a lot. Like you guys can track loosely, right? And you can kind of, eyeball what you're doing and stuff, right? With what I do, that goes out the window. So I find that, yeah, you're eyeballing 50 cheeseburgers, but then it's like, no, you go and count your salad, because like you've got to remain somewhat, I guess, disciplined, because it is Dean's seen what I can eat in a social setting without realizing you can eat for an hour straight, like without
But
even, because
yeah,
there's no like mind control.
there's two things, Liz. I think like if people are really listening to what James is saying, he's actually setting his diet up in a way to allow him the opportunity to binge as much as possible. But it's not done for any kind of enjoyment, right? It's done for the purpose of succeeding at binging. Like that's the reality. This is trained succeeding at binging. So if anyone's listening to
Right.
the behaviors he's doing and they maybe even say, hey, there's some things here that I do, like heavy restriction, heavy overconsumption, over sense, like a sense of like way too much
It's
fullness. Like
not the same.
this,
Yeah.
no, this is actually a trigger to you to say, oh, I'm following a similar approach to somebody who was deliberately trying to overfeed themselves. Like
Yeah.
that to me is
Also,
massive red flags, right?
I would definitely like to add, like, the feeling of lethargy, the 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 bloating, sometimes the heartburn, the acid reflux that comes with being a competitive eater. And I know your day-to-day, everyday person doesn't want that. So
Mhm.
yeah, obviously, like there is other things that I've just become accustomed to because it's a part of the sport that I choose. I definitely don't recommend that. So yeah, I would not encourage, and also that age-old saying, "Oh, you can out-train a poor diet and whatever else." And honestly, if you saw my progress photos, you would have a heart attack.
Mm.
So like, yeah, I definitely don't condone this, and
Are they
don't try
regression
this at home.
photos? Is that what you're
Oh
suggesting? That
man,
they're regression photos, not progress photos?
honestly, man, my belly is getting out of control.
Yeah. So well, this thing you mentioned before about your stomach feeling like it's stretched, I imagine there would be levels of diastasis, which is exactly what a pregnant woman experiences when the abdomen wall has been stretched beyond it's realistically its capacity that's designed to handle. So okay, let's just quickly like red flag some things so that people don't look at this and think that we're trying to like wrap competitive eating up in a bowl of like, it's all wins, you know, like look at James, he's living the best life. There's heartburn, there's indigestion, there's excessive diet, like, you know, gastric distension, potentially some diastasis. Bowel movements, I imagine, are not the greatest all the time, you know.
Yeah, it's next level.
What about like even like social exclusion, you know, like it's not normal for you to probably just go out for a standard meal and feel that satisfied, I wouldn't imagine. Like there's got to be a massive disconnect, I think, now for you into what a normal amount of food on a plate looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I think a couple of things to, I guess, talk about in that with that kind of topic. It's like, that whole like the whole kind of gastric stretch. Some people need that to get satiety, right? They're not satiated unless they can feel that kind of gastric stretch a little bit. But obviously, when you're dieting, like, a couple of 100 grams of protein and 100 grams of carbs, like you're bloated as hell, right? I'm starting at 3 to 4 kilos as a snack. So like, yeah, I don't get that gastric that sensation anymore. I
So
don't know.
fullness doesn't shut down your appetite, is what you're saying.
Definitely not. My brain is programmed now, when you're full, shut up and keep eating, sort of thing, right? So when I go out to eat, it's kind of like, okay, what am I going to order? And like, you tell yourself, I'm okay. You tell yourself, I'm satisfied, because actually you are. Your body doesn't need 5, 6 kgs of food. But because my stomach is so used to being stretched, it's probably like a soggy balloon, to be honest with you. Once you deflate a balloon, it's like weird and soggy
Mm.
and yeah, whatever, right? I believe that's what my stomach is. So yeah, when I go out, sensible, I call it, social occasion with the family or friends or whatever, it's like, and don't get me wrong, there's no way I'm ordering one main meal. Like I'm always ordering two or three. Like that's just how I am. But like once that's done, you tell yourself that's enough. I could easily keep eating, but it's like, no, you got to use like your brain. You got to be smart about it, because, well, A, man, you're going to bankrupt yourself going to a restaurant ordering like 5, 6 kgs of food. But also B, like on your off days, they're called off days for a reason. You can't eat like a maniac every day of the year. Like it's not good. Also, like that feeling of being bloated all the time, like you get over it. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'm due to go to the gym, and I'm like, oh, what happened? Like, even like today, trying to do bent over rows, and I bloated myself from the food challenge yesterday. I'm like, oh, I'm gassy and bloated. Like that sucks. So
Mm.
it affects your training as well, right? So yeah, honestly, a lot of it's up here.
There's another thing, James, you said before that I wanted to circle back to, just from a lesson perspective for people that are listening, because it is important, and it's really around that distension and the stretching of that nerve in the stomach that you would normatively shut down hunger cues or the appetite or the drive to eat. There's some like pretty good like research these days that has essentially said two things. One, that exists, so having some fullness is a good idea in regards to feeling satiated and shutting down appetite. So like, it's the devil for you there, but it's the friend for people that are hungry, right? The other one is, though, that is distension in the absence of calories isn't typically as effective. So if we were to have somebody say like try and make like some xanthan gum like fluff thing that's like hyper voluminous but isn't that calorific, or even actually diet sodas to a certain point during a dieting phase, is there's only a level of distension before more doesn't achieve any more appetite suppression. So like chasing absolute fullness for people that are in a deficit, even though James is doing it to stretch it, maybe isn't the greatest idea. But then the scariest one is that those that have eaten and are used to eating significantly large quantities of volume of food over lengthy periods of time seemingly have that process shut down. And it's very hard to re-engage it. So if you are somebody who is chasing fullness absolutely all the time, you run the risk of then absolutely all the time never feeling satisfied. So for anyone who's in a dieting phase and is taking like some tips here of like, oh, okay, we can create some fullness through some diet drinks, some lower calorie foods, great, to a point, not too far and not forever, because it becomes problematic, so.
Well, it's
Yeah, I think.
necessary to go on, Jim, sorry.
No, no, sorry, you go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's really important that we sit with the feeling of hunger and understand that you're not going to die just from being hungry, and it's not an emergency, and it's okay to feel hungry sometimes. Yes, we can minimize it. Yes, there's some things we can do to make ourselves more comfortable. But if you want to get lean, being hungry sometimes is inevitable, and running away from it is never going to lead to success. It's okay to be hungry. It's fine.
Yeah,
For
I was
sure.
going
I
to
think
say one.
no, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say one more just important thing is like I think this is another lesson in like the importance of delayed gratification, because if you're constantly trying to like fill that void by getting fuller more frequently, you're only setting yourself up for later on actually having to deal with hunger even more. Like you're now at a stage where there is no sensation of fullness to the point of shutting it down because you've trained this stretch so far beyond its natural capacity. And this is the risk that I've seen in some bodybuilders eventuate in prep, is that they end up coming out of it. And even when they've regained body fat, when technically those things should go back to normal, they've just chased like fullness for so long that they now don't know what emptiness feels like. And if they do, they're just always struggling. So
now, but before we jumped on the podcast, James, I looked at some of the like world records for eating, and I want to read some of them out to people because they're really gross. It's not. You said that you ate a pizza in like 25 seconds or something.
45 seconds, yeah.
45 seconds. So impressive. Love pizza. I could imagine very hungry Lizzie being like, oh, I want to try that. I won't, but you know. But here's some records I do not want to try. In 2001, Ken Edwards, most live cockroaches eaten in 60 seconds. He ate more than 30 cockroaches. He ate 32 cockroaches in a minute. Disgusting. We all like butter, but we don't like just eating butter. It's like butter on popcorn, butter on bread. But Don Lerman in 2002, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, he ate 28 ounces, which is nearly 800 grams of butter in 5 minutes. That's nearly 6,000 calories in 5 minutes. Crazy. The most disgusting one, however, is the most cow brains eaten in 5 minutes. It was 8 kilos of cow brains. Tell me how to pronounce this name in 2002. Takeru Kobayashi.
Takeru Kobayashi, one of the best competitive eaters ever.
57 cow brains in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that is the only time that I've ever been legitimately turned off by competition eating. Funnily enough, it was in Dallas. I was sitting there with Cam George, and I think this was actually post his comp. So he was ready to eat, right? Like he's like, finally, I don't have to restrict myself fully. And we sat down and we were both eating a cream of rice and we were watching, it was Kobayashi versus Joey Chestnut. It's on Netflix. And they showed the upcoming sort of, years of Kobayashi. And it was this event of him eating the brains. And he even said, like, when they came out, they smelled a bit funny and he thought they may have been a bit off. But he was just like, I just had to commit. And you watched him eating them and you could tell the whole time he was holding back a vomit. And Cam and I didn't make it through. We both looked at each other and went, I haven't enjoyed this meal at all. I'm going to bed. And he was like, yeah, dude, this is disgusting. And we stopped it. I've never stopped it because I find it quite intriguing how much food people can get in. And even that, actually, just as a quick reference, man, James, you mentioned before about eating 3 and 4 and 5 kilos of food, right? I build relatively like voluminous diets for my guys. On average, the daily food quantity is about 2.5 to 3 kilos across the entirety of the day. I've had one guy at like 4.2 kilos. And then fluids on top of it, right? So, but that's over 5 and 6 meals. And we're talking about doing this in a single sitting, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I do some crazy stuff.
So James, what are your top 3 records that you are most proud of?
I've got okay, so my world records. I've got 51 smoked Texas sausages in 8 minutes. That was rough. I got 13.5 pounds of chocolate fudge in 8 minutes.
Oh,
can you tell me that in kilos?
6?
13, about 6 and a bit kilos, yeah.
Oh
I
my
did
God.
yeah, I've done 354 donut holes, which are kind of like little round donut things in 8 minutes. 70 original glaze in 8 minutes. And I think that's it. But yeah, I got some crazy random records, but 274 chicken wings in 8 minutes and 224 buffalo wings in 8 minutes.
Okay, so you're like the anti-mindful eater.
Hey, look, I do what I got to do, man.
That's very impressive. It's very impressive.
I'd be interested to know, James, too. We had like a question of like, tell us something about competitive eating that people may find surprising. One of the things that actually surprised me that I never thought was, I always thought like eating too much food, the resistance was to like resist vomiting. But I've heard you say it, and I've heard multiple guys say it now, that when it gets to like the back end, pun intended, of the bigger meals, that it's actually trying to stop yourself from shitting yourself, not vomiting, which to me sounds wacky.
Well, look, when you can feel your stomach bottoming out on your pelvis, that pressure is yeah, crazy.
Difficult.
Difficult to handle.
So you can say you got a good
expelled from the
pucker.
competition? Like if you shit yourself, are you out of the comp?
Yeah, if anything leaves your body. I actually got disqualified from my first competition ever last month. I ate 96 tamales and I had tamale in my lung and it came out of my nose like a nosebleed and I got disqualified.
That is the funniest thing I've ever heard. Oh
For
my
people that
God.
don't know what tamales are, that would be bad, man. It's basically corn maze in a big stodgy sausage roll-esque type shape. It would be so
Yeah,
heavy.
yeah. I was just breathing, and it like, pew.
You couldn't pick it up and eat it and like get back into competition?
If anything leaves your body, if anything is seen twice, is how they call it. It's an instant disqualification. And I would have won by 8 tamales, but I couldn't handle myself.
Oh man. So if you poop yourself, like, is it kind of part of the competitive eating culture that you admit to it? Or is it like only if they notice that you pooped yourself?
Well, look, to be honest, there's people, grown ass men, being caught wearing nappies to try and hide the fact what they've just done, right? So to be fair, on the big contests, they don't check your undies, but they check your wearing undies. So you pull your shorts down a little bit so they can see like, your strap, Calvin Klein or Bonds or whatever it is, right? To prove like you're not wearing like Huggies, you know what I mean? Because there's been people that they've gone to lengths, some pretty disgusting lengths to kind of hide the fact of what they're doing.
It's embarrassing how entertained I am by this story.
It's like a train wreck, right? You know you shouldn't be looking, but you can't look away and you want to know what happens next.
It's roadkill, exactly. Oh my
Are
God.
there, any other defined rules? Like can't wear a nappy and shit yourself. Okay, fair. Like any
Yeah, look,
kind of
every
like
contest
performance
has it.
enhancement stuff. Like I don't know.
Yeah, look, so every contest has its own rules. Sometimes you're allowed to dunk your stuff and drink and whatever else. But in terms of like non-ethical things, I know some people do it and you're not supposed to. They drink throat antiseptic and it numbs their throat so they can swallow, I guess, more. Um, it's not a rule, but it's kind of like you don't do it. It's not
It's
with
frowned
whatever
upon.
you, yeah, if you want to call it unethical, it's unethical. Some people do. So, what's that? They sniff on ammonia. They like the powerlifters do, and
Okay.
they do. Yeah, they do some weird shit to, I guess, to make
How
them a
would
bit
that help?
fried. Well,
Oh,
it fries
okay.
the brain, right? Like you're just trying to numb yourself. Like a lot of the guys, they eat edibles. Like CBD edibles.
How did it
Again,
help?
well, I think there's the look. I know some of the boys that do it. It is to stimulate hunger, but I've seen some of the boys, I guess, take it too far, and they're just too fried. Because let's be honest, in an 8 minute contest, it's all technique and timing. You don't have time to cough or sneeze or whatever. So if you're not thinking 100%, doesn't matter how hungry you are, you can't eat as
Mm,
fast, right? So I know some of the guys that do like the ammonia sniffs and they eat the edibles, it fries them a little bit. If you look
mm,
at the best competitors, honestly, they're just well prepared. They don't do any of that. They don't need to do any of that stuff. And to be fair, like I actually I take pride in the fact that I don't do that stuff and drink. Like I saw one of the boys like chug half a Listerine. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that. But there is a lot of, and look, in America, there's so much over the counter stuff that's much stronger. Benadryl, cough syrup over there. A lot of it has a lot of stuff in it that can kind of fry your brain a little bit, I guess, numb you. And a lot of these guys, they can't handle the pain, right? So whatever kind of numbs them, helps them get through the contest.
okay.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's
So
also going
it's
to slow them
crazy. What
down.
you're trying to say is no amount of shortcuts will get you further than actually doing the work.
You said it. You said it. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ding, 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 ding,
Isn't
ding.
it funny though? It's like
Mhm.
this is every sport. It's like the elusive. Like, what's the drug? Like okay, so Phil
Yeah.
Heath won. That amount of Olympias. He must have had some special drug. He must have been myostatin inhibitors. Like, no, no, no. He was just very good. Like, took the
He did
same
the
drugs as
work.
you did. There's actually a good story from there's a well-known coach called Ben Chow, and he talks about the fact that he used to train with an ex-pro who's no longer alive. Luke Sando is a good friend of his, and he's like, man, I took the same drugs from the same supplier. I lifted the same weights, if not more, sometimes. I ate the same food, and I would just sit there and watch that motherfucker grow 3 times as much as me every week and just be like, I'm not made for this, you know? So,
It's true though. It's like that of every sport, right? Like you look at the best of every sport, they have something about them that is just a little bit better than the person next to them, right? That's why they are that top percentage. And look, if it was that easy, everyone would be like that, right? But the truth is at every sport, it's not that easy to be the best.
mm,
No, not at all. Guys, we're nearly on an hour. So we're going to start wrapping it up, beginning with a less shit tip. So, James, the tagline, I suppose, of our podcast is how to be less shit. If you had to send listeners home with a take home message on how they might be less shit, what might that be?
And be less shit. Just always remember, there's always someone bigger, smarter, better, got more money than you. Just be humble. be appreciative of the opportunities that, arise, and just be grateful to be able to be you. You know what I mean? Be authentic, be grateful. That's probably the best thing I can say.
What a good less shit tip.
It is.
Thanks.
Universal. Okay, so before we get to the final question, which is, would you rather? We like to leave our audience with something worth sharing. So some guests, I don't know, share an app or a book or a quote, a restaurant, I don't know, anything at all. Do you have something worth sharing with our audience?
Honestly, the biggest thing I would like to share, and it's quite universal again, is if you love it, do it, right? Whether you like to read or you like to eat food or whatever, go ahead and do it. So many people I did a podcast recently where it was all about people doing things they don't want to do, right? Man, I love what I do. My biggest thing is if you love it, do it, and who cares what anyone else thinks.
Cool. Because it was a meme on Instagram, it must be really deep. And so I'm going to share it here. It's kind of in line with what you're saying. And it's find something you'd die for and live for that.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think
I'm
like,
down for
yes.
that.
Yeah.
This may kill James, to be fair.
Yeah.
Just may.
You never know. Hey, you never know.
Hey, maybe you can clarify this, James, because we were uncertain about. We thought at one stage that Kobayashi choked and died, but it wasn't him; it was somebody else, obviously, because he's still alive.
Yeah. So actually, a lady choked on a lamington, and another lady, she died in her sleep from a potassium issue.
Ooh, okay.
And that was the rumor again. Rumor has it it's from her bulimic eating disorder, not looking after herself, I guess, off season. And to be honest, the only other person that's died from some kind of eating challenge was a young kid. Actually, just last year, he did that Paki One Chip Challenge and had an allergic reaction to the chili powder in the Paki Chip Challenge. But honestly, like there's so much rumors and BS going around. One of them was a legit choke. One was a bigger, deeper issue, and one was just allergic reaction.
Right.
And that's actually a massive highlight to say the end to electrolyte disturbance to this eating patterning and how that would have an impact on potential like heart complications is actually one that I never even considered. Maybe be cautious with the potato eating challenges. Don't do them repeatedly, and you should be sweet.
Yes, sir.
All right, Liz, would you rather hit him with it? I don't know what you could possibly come up with. Would you rather wear a butt plug while eating, or
would you rather? A fun side story on butt plugs, if I may. Up until what was it? I'm 35, so I should have known this before then. I thought up until a few years ago that butt plugs were for people that had too much butt sex and couldn't hold their poo in. Turns out that's not actually what they're for. Okay, James, would you rather? You know the feeling in a competition where like you're really trying to hold it in, you can't wear a nappy, you don't want to be disqualified. Would you rather 85% of your waking hours have that sensation? Whether or not you're actually going to shoot yourself or not, like it's just a sensation most of the time, 85% of your waking hours. Or
I can't not hear that without visuals. I'm just picturing a lot of puckering, and it's disturbing me.
A little turtle like poking his head out and back in. Or you're never ever able to retire from competitive eating. So today, until the day that you die, you're constantly either starving yourself or just full to the brim, no off season.
I reckon I'd rather not quit competitive eating.
Okay.
I love what I do.
You don't have to quit competitive eating. You don't have to quit it, but like at some point you're going to retire.
I will do it. No. If I could do it forever, I would do it forever.
No off season though. You can't like take breaks.
Genuinely, this sport has taken me around the world. What I get to call work is make YouTube videos. It is the best life. If I never have to retire, I'm not going to retire.
Okay. Would you rather then, I'm giving you another one because I feel like this was too easy for you, have 5 teeth, like 5 molars removed, so it's harder for you to chew, right? Or lose your sight for 2 years.
The teeth are gone forever?
Yeah, teeth are gone forever.
Funnily enough, I went blind and had to have double cataract surgery, so I never want to be blind again. I'll take the teeth. Being blind is the worst thing ever. I was literally blind.
Like because of this same accident when you were a soccer player?
Yeah, so look, actually the drug that saved my life one of the side effects is cataracts. And I went to sleep one night, woke up, and all I could see was like someone put a white sheet of paper over my face. And both my when they did that eye test thing, I had cataracts of like a 90-year-old lady. Historically, ladies have worse cataracts than men. And the eye guy is like, dude, like, what the hell happened to you? And I'm like, mate, I woke up like this. So I had to have emergency cataract surgery on both my eyes.
Oh, that's fucking crazy. And I love that you called the optometrist the eye guy. I'm going to do that with all
The eye
doctors
guy.
now. Podiatrist, the foot guy. A gynecologist, the vagina guy. That's what I'm going for moving forward.
Hey, look, you got to take it. You got to laugh. If you can't laugh about it, what's the point?
Fuck no, that's crazy. All right.
Yeah.
Well, James, if people wanted to follow you on social media, where may they find you?
Check me out on all platforms. Webby can eat. But if you just type in Webby, it should come up anyway.
JAY or just the letter J?
JWEBBY.
Uh, Okay, cool. Well, it was so great getting to know about competitive eating and getting to know you. That was so much fun.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, we'll see you guys all in the next episode.
Peace.